Oh boy everyone, it's Aang vs Traveler time. Now let me get a few things out the way just off the cuff. One, I do not like miHoYo, by extension, do not like Yuanshen at all. But two, I will not be allowing that to get in the way of this review. You're not going to hear me go, this analysis contains Yuanshen footage, or this character is a miHoYo character, and then label the episode as bad because of that. I will leave it at just being open with where I stand, doing my best to look past it. Are we clear on that? Just good, let's just get that out of the way, because I know a lot of people dislike this episode on basis that it's Yuanshen and it's gacha and so on. Whatever. Anyway, Aang vs Aether is out, and I was not particularly excited, but let's see how the episode went. Immediately, I think the Aang analysis is actually pretty good. I don't find it particularly funny, and the Atla memes that got old over half a decade ago when they were using Zuko vs Todoroki did serve to get some groans out of me, but for the most part, I think both the editing and the writing really did it for me. Maybe part of this is that I still have the dog shit MatPat film theory in my head, but I just really love that this analysis kind of just got Aang and the meaning and purpose of each bending art and the need for Aang not to be the best fighter, but rather a guide that understands people at their highs and their lows all around. The editing with like his teachers in the corner while showing all their feats looks so clean to me. I like paying lip service to the martial arts origins. I appreciate they didn't feel the need to add a big splash screen whoosh whoosh for every single minor character getting name dropped. And Jocelyn even got a cameo, which is really cool to see. She is my favorite of the Death Battle sidecast. It's great to see her making a return. I do really enjoy Death Battle when it existed. And her expression of like the meaning of Aang's pacifism, his desire not to see his culture die just because of his own inability to see a better solution than turning against their teachings, is so great. You know, it really adds something to the character. She really cares about this sort of part of characters, and so it's interesting to see her bounce off Boomstick a bit, who doesn't really give a shit. Like Boomstick groaning over Aang being a total pussy bitch and shit like that. That's fun, that's characterful, that's not just, he's not just saying what Chad James or the writer thinks, he's expressing something that makes sense for the character to think, and Jocelyn's arguing with him. I really like that dynamic. I also love the Avatar State segment presenting feats from each of the 4 bending techniques. Like, that was so unnecessary because only one of them really matters, but I really like they did it that way. It's just a really good analysis that gets Atla better than most post-Book 3 content does. It doesn't bring up a lot of stuff other than the original series, which is there's definitely something to be said for that, but I think between paying very minor lip service to everything and not really going in depth on anything is not as good as just going in depth what people really care about. I mean, would I prefer if the analysis was like 3 minutes longer and got to include everything? Absolutely, but that's just not the world we live in. That's not the way the money pans out. So that's just how it is, and I'm okay with this compromise. Traveler's analysis, I have significantly less to say about. I think Ringmaster's cameo was fine. I didn't like it as much as Jocelyn's, but I do think it is also very in character for Ringmaster to care so much more about the mechanics than the lore or the feats. He does bring more energy and excitement to the table than Boomstick does lately, and I like him threatening to drop a whale on Wiz's lap when he isn't looking because he can't think of a better comeback. That's such a bad fucking comeback, but I like it. I just got nothing out of the rest of the analysis. Aether himself doesn't really get much focus as a character who, I understand, as someone who has played several gacha games, might be for a very good reason. The editing is really great though, and I did like some of the gags related to gacha elements. It just does feel like a lot of it amounts to Aether went to a place, did something he doesn't give a shit about, learnt an element and pissed off, just kind of on loop. That's probably Yuanshen's story, but I didn't care much for it. Really didn't do anything to sell me on it, and a lot of it feeling like references and nods and comments about things fans know makes it into white noise after a certain point. The comment about not knowing what motivates his sister though is really funny to me, because why even bring it up if we don't know why? It feels like it's only there to date the episode, so like when the game eventually reveals it, people can now go back to this episode and go, oh, well that's dated. And then there's the fight. And that wasn't for the fight itself, just for how it starts. This is yet another in-media res start for an episode, and this one really didn't scan for me. We've gotten quite a few this year. Cell vs Metal almost, but not really counts. Cell's already dealing with the Egg Fleet when it starts, but not Metal himself, so okay, bit of a pass there. But then we have Bakugo vs Reze, Gru vs Megamind, Superboy Prime vs the Sentry, and they all like still tell a story in a way. Reze has one line establishing she was sent out to kill Bakugo. Gru and Megamind fully established through their dialogue in the entire fight that there was just a massive misunderstanding here. Now that said, Between you and me, I would have loved to see how the misunderstanding happened, because unironically, the process of these two starting a fight between each other sounds like it'd be way funnier than anything you could do with the two fighting. And so Boy Prime establishes in one line that he's pretty much just fighting Sentry because he fully knows he's in a death battle. He's doing it out of obligation. In that case, starting in media res might actually add character writing to the episode, because it implies that Superboy Prime was so excited for this crossover that he started the fight before he waited for the episode to catch up to the fight. So what's the story with Aang vs Aether? Well, I have to assume it's a Yuanshen thing, because there's nothing really Aether or Aang say to establish what's happening. We do get Paimon showing up to say that she went off treasure hunting, which, given that the location looks like the Southern Air Temple, implies a story here is Aether traveled into the world of Avatar and came across this air temple, and either he or Paimon decided to go grave robbing, though in their defense, they wouldn't know that's what they're doing. And either Aang decided to righteously pick a fight in the name of pacifism, or Aang asked what he was doing and Aether decided to pick a fight, which, given how aggressively pissed off Aether is in this entire fight, is probably what happened. Hey, what's going on? Ah, fuck you! That's how Aether sounds now, and Aang. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the kind of person that Aether is to say if that's, like, in character, but given he's like a gacha protagonist, my assumption going in and from the analysis is that he doesn't get much characterization in the first place. Usually the protagonists in these kind of games do the old school, like, JRPG, they're an extension of the player type thing, where they either don't say anything or their only dialogue is dialogue you choose. And I also feel like that's supported by Aether's dialogue in this fight. Now, Aang gets moments that show off the kind of person he is. He finds the dino form real cute and he has a lot of fun riding him, and he comments on Aether's ability to glide, assuming him to be using some sort of weird novelty glider. Aether, meanwhile, is just growling and grunting, calling out some attacks and saying meaningless tripe like "nobody fights alone" while he fights alone, or saying some shit during his final attack, that I assume are either motifs from his game or dialogue he says while doing special attacks in the game. And that kind of mostly silent, zero charisma type of dialogue really reinforces my assumptions as to the kind of character he is, which I want to say is fine. That is to say, if that's the kind of character he is and Death Battle was accurate about it, then it's fine, because I gotta admit, I don't dislike the silent extension of the player archetype nearly as much as some people do. Not to say it doesn't get to me sometimes, but yeah, you know, I don't hate the archetype as much as a lot of gamers do. It just makes me feel really uncertain as to how this fight came to happen, and it also means that Aang gets basically all the memorable character moments, but Aether makes up for that by having all the memorable fighty bang bang moments, to use the technical term, so let's talk about that. Obviously, the big selling point for this animation are the effects for the elements, and they're all pretty great. The Yuanshen effects, I'm certain, were very lovingly crafted, and they put effort into getting the details right, and they sure do look nice. The big elemental fuck-off attacks at the end in particular look really cool, but my favorite visual part of the fight is the bit in the steam with like the flashes of their non-visual vision powers demonstrating how they're fighting while obscured. I think that's a really cool shot. Camera work is also really solid, in particular for me, the entire gliding segment with them crossing this huge distance and flying around firing attacks off. Aang doesn't really get many moments to shine in the fight itself, but him spinning around Aether's water bullets to the big bubble and then bubbling him and freezing him, that's quite fun. There's a lot of moments that really follow the characters in like extended singular tracking shots, and I find that really cool. In terms of choreography, for the most part, this is the Aether show, and unfortunately, though very understandably, they don't play into the martial arts of Aang's bending. I don't think it's a big deal because Death Battle had enough problems getting Aether's effects right, but like, you know, Aang doesn't take powerful steps or use big full torso body motions while earthbending. His firebending is used once, so who's the hell to say if that's good or not, and his airbending feels oddly forceful and not very effortlessly free, though that's hard to explain. His waterbending's fairly okay though. This is not something I hold against the crew, I wouldn't expect them to do it in the first place. What I think is more of a shame is that Aang doesn't really get to show off his creativity. He does a little airbending swing, he makes rock spikes, he throws Aether underground, he swings around a puddle, shoots a burst of fire, glides tornadoes, does a really easy to miss rock attack I think, and then the whole water redirection thing I mentioned earlier. Then at the end he just does the opening of Last Airbender, which is at least kind of a cute visual reference. Aang is really not stealing the show, which makes it good that he gets the character moments. To be fair though, it's not like Aether gets to show off much creativity either. I just don't know enough about him to say if that's particularly weird or not. Given the uphill battle this episode was facing with the amount of shit they had to render with all the elements and the sub 4 minute time limit, I think it's very commendable how much they were able to get in there, especially from Aether. Trading big Aang moments for Aang getting to be way more fun and characterful is an acceptable enough compromise to me. We also got a rider kick in. You love me a good rider kick. Though, I thought this pile of rocks was a cloud that Aang dragged in because of how untextured it looks. It just looks like a dark cloud to me. Alright, and then there's the ending. I think the Avatar transformation has a cool shot here with all the elements, and then a pretty weak actual transformation. I don't know, this just didn't have much impact to me. And strangely, Aang doesn't sound like he's in the Avatar state. Now, maybe this is how he's portrayed in the new film I haven't seen, or maybe in the comics there's a guy who says like, oh, you only have one voice now in the Avatar state, and that's what they're referencing. But like, I know from the series only that Aang has this booming, layered voice in the Avatar state. It sounds like a bunch of avatars speaking at once through his body. This one doesn't have that, and honestly, I think Aang's actual line is kind of cringeworthy. I don't know, the flat delivery and forcing in, I am the last I can't even say it with a straight face. Forcing in, I am the last airbender, which I'm pretty sure is said maybe once ever in the show, gave me the energy of like, if Shyamalan had gotten to book 3, what would he have written Aang to say? That's what it came across to me. Weird that he would refer to himself as the last airbender as a kind of boast, or even referring to himself as I while he's in the Avatar state. Unless he did that in the show, I just don't remember well enough. Like, it's a very groan-worthy line to me that feels a bit out of character. As much as I hate to say it, I think the Avatar state is slightly better in the last Aang episode. Not visually, but they get the voice across, and I think the scale is more apt with the big tornado. He feels like he's in control of the battlefield. To be clear though, the scene overall is worse. Like, don't get me wrong. Because the scene, oh my god, fucking Ed's line, Aang's line, he still refers to himself by a singular pronoun. That whole scene is garbage. I just think in a vacuum, that portrayal of the Avatar state, I just think is better. It sounds more like the Avatar, and it has more of the scale of the Avatar. Anyway, I do think Traveler weaponizing the Avatar state against Aang is neat, though I had no idea that's what was happening until the conclusion. And I think it's a little strange that Aang can't redirect the lightning at all, but I guess they explained it's a buzzsaw, so it's shaped differently, so he can't do it. And Aether does get a really cool big fuck-off attack that looks great. I like this shot of like water, fire, and earth from up in the air, showing in a way all 4 of Aang's elements at once as he dies. That's really cool, though it does make me confused a bit on scale. Like, is it just me, or have all 3 Avatar state appearances on this show, with the exception of this one scene of Korra throwing this fuck-off rock, felt really small scale and localized? Like, I don't know if you remember, but in the show, the Avatar state feels like a natural disaster. They are countrywide threats whose attacks are more like just throwing a calamity at you than any kind of targeted assault most of the time. I get with Edward, he probably just isn't built like that. But with Aether doing this huge fire sword, it makes me wonder if he could have actually played off of this sheer scale. I don't know why the avatars feel like so localized. It just feels like a normal kind of Super Saiyan power-up, as opposed to the kind of otherworldly, absurd jump in scale and power that it really is in the show. Anyway, the point is though, for the most part, this is a solid fight. I think the effects and the camera and a lot of the choreography is pretty great. I think Aang is quite fun. I really like how far they travel during the fight. That's not really as prominent in a lot of death battles unless they go to or are already in space. Because in space you can make them go really far without needing to worry about what you're doing, because it's just a black background with some dots on it. I think thumbs up, nice work. I think it is a good episode. I know I'm going to get a lot of shit from people just for saying that I think it's alright. I think it's good. It's okay. Oh, and the conclusion is fine. The only thing that got me is Boomstick saying I thought Aang would take all the elements. As if the baseline words on the table aren't Aether can control all of Aang's elements, but Aang can't control all of Aether's. Whatever. I like the possible implication that Boomstick getting his dailies done on Yuanshen was him playing the fight we just saw too. Like, it would kind of explain why Aether says nothing but attack animation voice lines and is so aggressive the whole time if Boomstick was in control. If maybe potential callback to Dark Souls versus John Skyrim too. Just this time Boomstick won instead of giving up like a loser. Also, they mention Aether's willpower is enough to alter fate, but I swear in the analysis they said that that's just a trait he has by existing. It doesn't really matter, so whatever. And the dummy cameo was cute. I'm fucking living for that next time though. What a breath of fresh air, not to mention some cultural diversity with a character not from Japan, the US, or the UK. First with another Chinese combatant in this episode, and now with 2 from Denmark. Toa Tahu, my goat, please tell me they got Scott McNeil to reprise the role. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Review done. I'm so fucking ready for Toa Tahu, even if he might die just because of the way he chooses to fight. Oh boy, I'm sure hoping people are normal about this one. Yeah, so that was the review. As you might have noticed, I like Aang vs Aether. I think it's fine. Yeah, it's a solid episode. Of course, tell me what you thought below. I know a lot of people didn't really care for it, and that's, of course, completely fine and acceptable. Yeah, that's all. Share your thoughts. I know what else to say. Thanks everyone for scrolling by and supporting me on Patreon. If you want to support me, link in the description. You'll get access to videos like this early, and my Patreon Discord where you can bug me, and you can also make me say stupid stuff. Oh boy, let's see what we got. I'm not singing the Yo-Yo Paraka rap, but, oh god. Okay, a burp. But it is a peak rap. You know, it's absolutely goated. Paraka versus G2 Bruticus would go so hard. Maybe as a not death battle if I can get my hands on the original line of Parakas and the Combiner Wars G2 Bruticus. Pretty sure that exists. Pretty sure that's a thing. I've seen it, but if I had access to those, I would do it.
I am Avatar Aang, the last airbender of all time.
It's angler time. I'm not singing! Bionicle facts. Okay, well, so, what were some good random facts? So, Toa Tahu, of course, his name is not Toa Tahu, he is the Toa named Tahu. But the Toa Mata and all the other Toa would go by the Toa title. So the original 6, I think, is Toa Tahu, Toa Kapaka, Toa Gali, Toa Onua, Toa Pahatu, Toa Liwa. However, the design I particularly like is the Toa Nuva design, which are the same group of 6, but they're in different forms. I think it was when they're fighting these like illusion creating guys, they fall into some protodermis or whatever, and it supercharges them, and it gets rid of the gold Kanohi mask for whatever reason. And that is, I believe, the one we've got previewed in the next time trailer. There's a shot of the Toa Nuva design, which is my favorite, and of course, in Bionicle the Mask of Light, he is voiced by Scott McNeil, who I most well know for voicing Dinobot, Waspinator, Silverbolt, so on in Beast Wars Transformers, as well as, interestingly, Jetfire in Energon and Armada, but not in Cybertron when he is supposed to be Australian, even though Scott McNeil is an Aussie. So pretty sure he is. So that's an interesting fact, you know, because Transformers and Bionicle, the fandoms had like a lot of crossover for a time. So it's just, that's a fun little thing. Of course, another interesting thing is while Bionicle Mask of Light features like a big climactic battle between the Toa, specifically Takanuva, and the Makuta, in the original comic run, Coming of the Toa, whatever the second one was, and Triumph of the Toa, you don't get to see the Makuta battle. The Makuta battle happens in, I think, one of the books, and it's in Matanui Online, but the original Makuta battle is just not depicted in the comic or any of, like, the I don't want to say any of the notable material, because Matanui Online absolutely is notable, but most of Mask of Light is like, inspired from, like, the vibe and the style of Matanui Online over the comics or the books. or even like the original toys. Mask of Light as well. I don't know what I'll go on that. There's some random Bionicle facts for you. Other facts, Tahu and Kapaka are the coolest of the Toamata. Yeah. Also, I believe that the Toamata, interestingly enough, were never Matoran. Like, that's an interesting little thing, because I'm... If you know about, like, the next Toa, what are they called? The Toametru or something? With, like, Vakama, they were Matorans, who then turned into Toa, who then turned into Taraga. And when I say next, that happened earlier, but doesn't matter. What all these characters have in common is that they are in this image. Shut the fuck up, Biff. I'm not saying that. I'll include the fucking image of him here just to shut you up. I'm not gonna say that. I do care about football season. I mean, Australian rules football. And as a Carlton fan, it's tough. It's tough. Also a Brisbane fan, and that's less tough, but... I do not need Yahweh. I do not need Yuri. I do not need Headslop. I need chemistry. I need basis. I need a reason. And if there is none, then I simply do not care. Oh, yeah, that's probably close enough to what was wanted. Yeah, okay. Does that. Cool. Yeah, that's the video. Take care, everyone. Have a nice day.